There will be days when you don't feel like showing up, when the excitement fades, when the motivation is nowhere to be found, and when every part of you wants to quit. And that's exactly the moment where your future is decided. Not on the easy days, but on the hard ones. The truth is, consistency is not about feeling good every day. It's not about motivation. It's about a decision to show up. No matter what. We often admire people who succeed, but we forget that their greatness wasn't built in a single moment. It was built in the small, seemingly insignificant choices they made every day. The early mornings, the late nights, the practice when no one was watching. It's easy to act when you're inspired, but those who achieve real success are the ones who act even when they're tired, when they're bored, when they're frustrated. Because consistency is not about how you feel, it's about who you are. So how do we become consistent? We remove the need to decide. We set routines, create habits, and make commitment automatic. When something is important, you don't rely on willpower, you systematize it. And the best part, once you build momentum, everything changes. What once felt impossible now feels natural. And the people around you will start to trust you, not because of what you say, but because of what you do. So today, force yourself to be consistent, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Your future depends on it. There's a common mistake we all make when we set out to achieve something big. We tell ourselves, I just need to stay motivated. We look for inspiration. We watch videos. We read books. We listen to speeches that light a fire inside us. And for a moment, it works. We feel energized, unstoppable. We're ready to take on the world. Then a few days pass, the excitement fades, the energy drops, and suddenly the things that felt so important, the things we were once so eager to do, start feeling like a chore. We hit the snooze button instead of getting up early. We skip the workout. We put off the project. We tell ourselves we'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes next week. And just like that, we're back where we started. We blame ourselves. We think maybe I'm just not motivated enough. And so we go searching for more motivation, more inspiration, hoping that the next speech, the next book, the next moment of excitement will finally be enough to keep us going. But here's the truth. Motivation is a terrible strategy for success. It's unreliable, it's inconsistent, it comes and goes like the wind. If you're waiting to feel motivated every day, you'll never be consistent. And if you're never consistent, you'll never achieve anything great. The people who accomplish extraordinary things don't rely on motivation. They rely on something much stronger. Discipline. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. It's showing up when you're tired. It's working when you're uninspired. It's doing the hard things when no one is watching. It's committing to the process even when the results aren't visible yet. Think about the greatest athletes, the best musicians, the most successful entrepreneurs. They don't wake up every day feeling excited to train, to practice, to work. But they do it anyway, not because they're motivated, but because they've trained themselves to be disciplined. Michael Jordan didn't become the best basketball player in the world because he felt like practicing every day. He became the best because he practiced every day, whether he felt like it or not. Serena Williams didn't win Grand Slam titles by training only when she was excited. She trained on the days when she was exhausted, on the days when her body ached, on the days when she didn't want to get out of bed. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple into one of the most influential companies in the world because he felt inspired every single day. He did it because he showed up day after day, relentlessly pursuing excellence. Success is not about how you feel, it's about what you do, regardless of how you feel. So how do we build discipline? How do we force ourselves to be consistent even when we don't feel like it? First, we have to stop making feelings the deciding factor in our actions. Too often, we let our emotions dictate what we do. I'm too tired. I don't feel like it. I'm not in the mood. But if you only act when you feel good, you'll never be consistent. And if you're not consistent, you'll never reach your full potential. The key is to separate action from emotion. You don't go to the gym because you feel like it. You go because it's part of who you are. You don't work on your craft because you're inspired. You work because you made a commitment to yourself. You don't push forward because it's easy. You push forward because you refuse to quit. Second, we need to create habits and routines that make discipline automatic. The most disciplined people don't rely on willpower. They design their lives in a way that removes the need for constant decision-making. A writer who waits for inspiration will never finish a book. But a writer who sits down at the same time every morning and writes no matter what will eventually produce something great. A person who decides to eat healthy every day instead of debating every meal will stay on track without constantly battling their own impulses. A business owner who follows a strict work schedule will get more done than one who only works when they feel like it. When you set routines, you eliminate the friction between you and your goals. You make the decision once, and then you simply follow through. Third, we need to change the way we see discipline. Too many people think of discipline as something restrictive, something that takes away freedom. But in reality, discipline is the ultimate form of freedom. If you have the discipline to wake up early and work on your goals, you gain the freedom of success. If you have the discipline to save money instead of spending recklessly, you gain the freedom of financial security. If you have the discipline to exercise and eat well, you gain the freedom of a strong, healthy body. Discipline is not a punishment. It's a gift you give yourself. It's the path to everything you want in life. Finally, we need to build resilience. There will be days when you fail, days when you break the routine, when you miss a workout, when you procrastinate, when you fall short of your own expectations. And that's okay. What matters is not perfection, but persistence. Too often, people let one bad day turn into a bad week, one mistake turn into a complete collapse. But consistency is not about being perfect. It's about always coming back, always resetting, always moving forward. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't is not that successful people never fail. It's that they never quit. So today, make a decision. Stop waiting to feel motivated. Stop hoping that inspiration will carry you through. Instead, commit to being disciplined. Commit to showing up, even when it's hard. Because the people who succeed in life are not the ones who always feel good. They're the ones who always follow through. And that choice, that discipline, is what separates the dreamers from the doers. Success isn't about one grand moment, one massive breakthrough, or one defining action. It's built in the small, seemingly insignificant choices we make every single day. The world celebrates the big achievements, the championship win, the best-selling book, the thriving business, but what we don't see, what often goes unnoticed, are the thousands of small, consistent actions that led to that moment. We all want results. We want to be stronger, wealthier, more successful, more skilled. But most people give up before they ever see real progress, not because they lack potential, but because they lack patience. They expect immediate gratification. They want to see dramatic results right away. And when they don't, they get frustrated. They assume they're failing, that their effort isn't working, and so they quit. But success doesn't happen overnight. It happens through small, consistent actions that compound over time. Just like a single workout won't transform your body, one day of practice won't make you an expert, and one good decision won't change your life. But repeated consistently, those small actions lead to massive results. Consider the way water erodes rock. It doesn't happen because of one huge splash. It happens because of thousands, millions of tiny drops of water over time wearing down the surface. It's not the single act that creates the change, but the repetition. Most people underestimate the power of small wins. They believe that if something doesn't create an immediate, dramatic impact, it's not worth doing. They dismiss small improvements because they seem insignificant in the moment. But what they don't realize is that those small improvements are the key to long-term success. Imagine two people both trying to get in shape. One decides to go all in, training for hours every day, pushing themselves to the limit. They make huge changes all at once, and for a few weeks it works, but then they burn out. It becomes too overwhelming, too exhausting, and they eventually stop. The other person takes a different approach. Instead of trying to change everything at once, they commit to something small, just 15 minutes of exercise a day. At first, it seems almost pointless. What difference could 15 minutes make? But they stick with it. Every day they show up. Over time, they start increasing their workouts, building momentum. A few months go by, and suddenly they're in the best shape of their life, not because they made a drastic change, but because they were consistent. That's the power of small wins. They don't seem like much at first, but they create habits, build confidence, and generate momentum. They keep you moving forward, and over time, they lead to massive transformation. The same principle applies in every area of life. A writer doesn't finish a book in a single sitting. They write a little bit every day, slowly adding words until one day they have a manuscript. A musician doesn't become a master overnight. They practice scales, chords, and exercises daily, building muscle memory and refining their skills until one day they perform effortlessly. A successful entrepreneur doesn't build a thriving business by taking one huge risk. They make small, strategic decisions every day, improving, adjusting, learning until those small decisions add up to something great. Consistency is what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The people who achieve great things aren't necessarily the most talented, the smartest, or the luckiest. They're the ones who commit to showing up every single day, whether they feel like it or not. They don't rely on bursts of motivation, they rely on discipline, consistent action. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with consistency is that they focus too much on the outcome and not enough on the process. They want the results, but they don't want to go through the small, daily actions required to get there. They start strong, but when they don't see immediate progress, they lose motivation. But progress is often invisible in the beginning. It's like planting a seed. You water it every day, but for a long time, nothing happens. You don't see anything growing. It would be easy to think your effort is wasted. But beneath the surface, something is happening. The roots are forming. The foundation is being built. And then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, a sprout appears. That's how success works. The small actions you take today may not seem like they're making a difference, but over time they add up. They create momentum. And once momentum kicks in, everything changes. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It's why the first few days of a new habit feel so difficult. But once you stick with it long enough, it becomes second nature. The hardest part is getting started, pushing through the phase where results aren't visible. But once you do, everything becomes easier. Think about a train at a complete stop. It takes a massive amount of energy to get it moving. But once it builds momentum, once it's moving at full speed, it becomes almost unstoppable. The same is true for you. If you can commit to showing up every day, even in small ways, you'll eventually hit a point where it feels effortless. The secret to success isn't found in one big breakthrough, one perfect moment, or one life-changing decision. It's found in the small, seemingly unimportant choices you make every day. It's in the workouts you do when you don't feel like it. The hours of practice no one sees. The extra effort you put in when no one is watching. So don't wait for motivation. Don't look for shortcuts. Don't expect immediate results. Just focus on winning today. Do something small that moves you forward. And then do it again tomorrow. And the next day. Because if you can master the power of small wins, you can achieve anything. There's a reason why some people remain stuck in the same cycle of inconsistency, always starting and stopping, while others seem to be unstoppable, showing up day after day, year after year. The difference isn't talent. It isn't intelligence. It isn't even motivation. It's identity. We all have a story we tell ourselves about who we are. And that story determines our actions far more than we realize. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, you will act accordingly. If you believe you're someone who always quits when things get hard, you will find ways to prove that belief right. But if you shift your identity, if you start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, who does the hard things, who is consistent, your actions will start aligning with that identity. Most people approach consistency the wrong way. They think if I just force myself to act consistently, then I'll become the type of person who is consistent. But it actually works in the opposite direction. You don't act consistently so you can become a disciplined person. You first decide that you are a disciplined person, and then you naturally start acting in alignment with that belief. The first response implies that they still see themselves as a smoker who is struggling to quit. The second response is an identity shift. They no longer see themselves as a smoker, so there is no internal battle. Their actions align with their identity. The same principle applies to consistency. If you say, I'm trying to be more disciplined, you're reinforcing the idea that you're not yet that person. But if you say, I am someone who shows up no matter what, you eliminate the debate in your mind. It's no longer about whether you feel like it. It's just what you do. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you go to the gym, you are casting a vote for the identity of a fit and healthy person. If you write every day, you are casting a vote for the identity of a writer. If you make time for deep work, you are casting a vote for the identity of a focused and productive person. The more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. Eventually, it becomes so ingrained that consistency is no longer something you have to force. It becomes part of who you are. This is why so many people struggle with consistency. They are trying to act in a way that contradicts their current self-image. If you believe deep down that you are lazy, unreliable, or incapable of sticking with things, no amount of willpower will keep you consistent. You will always find a way to return to the identity that feels familiar. But the good news is that identity is not fixed. It can be rewritten. And the way you rewrite it is through action. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to see massive progress right away. You just need to start proving to yourself through small, consistent actions that you are the kind of person who follows through. At first, it will feel unnatural. Your brain will try to pull you back into old habits because that's what it knows. But every time you override that old programming and show up anyway, you weaken the old identity and strengthen the new one. This is why starting small is so important. If you try to overhaul your entire life overnight, your brain will resist. But if you focus on one small, manageable habit, something you can do every single day without fail, you start accumulating wins. And those wins reinforce your new identity. Imagine two people trying to become runners. One decides to start running 5 miles every day. They push themselves hard, but after a week, they're exhausted. Their body aches. They miss a day, then two. Before they know it, they've given up. The other person takes a different approach. They commit to running just 5 minutes a day. It seems almost too easy, but they do it every single day. After a week, 5 minutes turns into 10. After a month, they're running a mile effortlessly. After a year, they're running half marathons. The difference isn't ability, it's identity. The first person still sees themselves as someone who struggles with running, so when things get hard, they stop. The second person, by showing up consistently, no matter how small the effort, starts seeing themselves as a runner. And once they believe they are a runner, running is no longer something they have to force themselves to do, it's just part of who they are. This applies to every area of life. You want to be consistent in your work. Stop telling yourself you're lazy. Start proving through small actions that you are someone who delivers. If you want to be consistent in your health, stop identifying as someone who struggles with fitness. Start proving through small daily habits that you are someone who prioritizes their health. Your identity is like a thermostat. If a room is set to 70 degrees, it doesn't matter if the temperature temporarily drops or rises, the thermostat will always bring it back to 70. The only way to change the long-term temperature is to change the setting on the thermostat. If your self-image is set to I'm inconsistent, then even if you push yourself for a while, you'll eventually return to that baseline. The only way to create lasting change is to reset the thermostat, to change how you see yourself at a fundamental level. This is why people who try to force consistency through sheer willpower almost always fail. Willpower is like a battery, it drains over time. But identity is like a foundation, it supports everything you do. So instead of just trying to be more consistent, start seeing yourself as someone who already is. Stop identifying as someone who struggles with discipline. Start identifying as someone who shows up, and then prove it. Not through big dramatic actions, but through small daily wins. Keep stacking those wins, keep reinforcing that identity, and eventually you won't have to force yourself to be consistent anymore. You will simply be someone who is. There is a harsh reality about success that most people don't want to face. The reason they don't stick to their commitments, the reason they struggle with consistency, the reason they start and stop over and over again isn't because of time, talent, or motivation. It's because they are unwilling to be uncomfortable. At the core of every excuse, every broken promise to yourself, and every moment of procrastination is an attempt to avoid discomfort. The discomfort of waking up early when your bed is warm. The discomfort of going to the gym when your muscles are sore. The discomfort of working on a difficult project when distractions are everywhere. The discomfort of pushing through boredom, fatigue, self-doubt, and fear. The truth is, consistency isn't hard because the actions themselves are difficult. It's hard because we resist discomfort. The mind is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and when something feels even slightly uncomfortable, our first instinct is to escape it. We grab our phone. We scroll through social media. We find distractions that feel good in the moment but push us further away from what we actually want. This is why so many people struggle with consistency. It's not that they don't have enough time. It's not that they're incapable. It's that the moment things start feeling uncomfortable, they stop. They tell themselves, I'll do it later. I'll wait until I feel ready. I'll start fresh on Monday. But Monday never comes. Readiness never arrives. And they stay stuck in the same cycle. If you want to be consistent, you have to train yourself to stop avoiding discomfort and start embracing it. Not just tolerating it, but seeking it out, reframing it. Learning to see discomfort as a sign that you're growing rather than something to escape from. Think about the people who are the most consistent in any field: elite athletes, top performers, successful entrepreneurs. They don't have some magical ability to avoid discomfort. They have simply trained themselves to see discomfort as necessary. They have built the habit of pushing through the moment when their mind tells them to quit. A runner doesn't stop training because their legs burn. They push through because they know that discomfort is where improvement happens. A writer doesn't quit because they feel uninspired. They keep writing because they know that pushing through boredom is the only way to finish a book. A leader doesn't give up on a project because it gets hard. They lean into the challenge because they know that overcoming obstacles is what leads to breakthroughs. Consistency requires a mindset shift. Instead of seeing discomfort as a sign to stop, you must start seeing it as a signal that you are exactly where you need to be. Most people make decisions based on how they feel in the moment. But if you only act when you feel comfortable, you will never be consistent. The people who achieve great things are not the ones who wait for the perfect conditions. They are the ones who take action, even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, and uncertain. So how do you train yourself to embrace discomfort? First, you have to recognize the patterns. Pay attention to the moments when you start to avoid something difficult. Maybe you suddenly feel the urge to check your phone when you're supposed to be working. Maybe you convince yourself you're too tired to exercise. Maybe you tell yourself you'll start eating healthy tomorrow. These are all signs that your brain is trying to escape discomfort. The first step to overcoming this is awareness. Catch yourself in the act. Call it out. Acknowledge that this is just resistance, and that resistance is a normal part of growth. Second, start small. If you try to overhaul your entire mindset overnight, you will fail. Instead, train yourself in tiny moments. The next time you feel the urge to quit, push just a little further. If you're working and you feel the urge to check your phone, wait 5 more minutes. If you're running and you want to stop, take just 10 more steps. If you don't feel like starting a project, commit to just 5 minutes of effort. These small moments of pushing through discomfort build the mental strength to keep going when things get hard. Third, change the way you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," say, "This is where I get stronger." Instead of thinking, "I don't feel like doing this," say, "I do it anyway." The way you speak to yourself matters. Your brain listens. If you tell yourself discomfort is bad, you will avoid it. If you tell yourself discomfort is growth, you will embrace it. Fourth, remind yourself why it matters. When you hit a moment of resistance, when discomfort makes you want to quit, zoom out. Think about the bigger picture. The reason most people don't follow through is that they focus too much on how they feel in the moment and forget why they started in the first place. If you're only thinking about how hard something is right now, quitting makes sense. But if you remind yourself of your long-term goal, the reason you started quitting is no longer an option. Fifth, surround yourself with people who embrace discomfort. If you spend time with people who always choose the easy path, you will be tempted to do the same. But if you surround yourself with people who push themselves, who show up no matter what, who hold themselves to a higher standard, you will rise to their level. Finally, commit to doing something uncomfortable every single day. It doesn't have to be huge. Take a cold shower. Do 1 more set at the gym. Have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Wake up early when you want to sleep in. Every time you do something uncomfortable on purpose, you rewire your brain. You prove to yourself that you are not controlled by your feelings, you are in control of your actions. The reality is, most people never achieve their goals, not because they aren't capable, but because they aren't willing to be uncomfortable long enough to see results. They quit too soon. They give in to excuses. They let temporary discomfort rob them of long-term success. But you don't have to be most people. You can train yourself to embrace discomfort. You can decide that quitting is not an option. You can commit to showing up even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when every part of you wants to stop. And if you can do that, if you can learn to lean into discomfort instead of running from it, there is nothing you cannot accomplish. Because consistency isn't about talent or luck, it's about the willingness to keep going when others would stop. And the person who keeps going no matter what is the person who wins. Most people think consistency is about discipline. They think if they could just be more disciplined, if they could just force themselves to do the work every day, then everything would fall into place. But that's not how it works. The truth is, even the most disciplined people don't rely on willpower alone. They don't wake up every day with an endless supply of motivation ready to push through any obstacle. What they rely on is something far more powerful systems. A system is a structure, a set of habits, routines, and strategies designed to make consistency automatic. It removes decision-making from the equation so that showing up isn't a choice, it's just something that happens. The problem with most people is that they rely too much on their emotions to determine their actions. They wake up and ask themselves, do I feel like doing this today? And if the answer is no, they don't do it. But high performers don't ask themselves if they feel like it. They don't wait to be in the mood. They don't depend on bursts of motivation. They build systems that make action inevitable. They create an environment where consistency is the default, not the exception. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up and debate whether or not you should brush your teeth today. You don't need to be motivated to do it. It's just part of your routine. It's built into your day. Now imagine if everything you wanted to be consistent with your workouts, your deep work, your personal growth was just as automatic as brushing your teeth. Imagine if it didn't require willpower or motivation because it was simply part of how your day was structured. That's the power of a system. One of the biggest mistakes people make is relying on willpower to stay consistent. Willpower is like a muscle, it gets fatigued. The more decisions you have to make in a day, the weaker your willpower becomes. That's why by the end of the day, it's so much harder to resist junk food, distractions, or procrastination. Your mental energy has been drained by making too many choices. But when you have a system in place, you don't have to waste mental energy on decisions. You don't have to think about whether or not you're going to do something, you just do it, because that's the structure you've built. A system removes friction. It makes consistency easier. And the key to building a system is designing your environment in a way that supports your habits. For example, if you want to be consistent with working out, don't leave it up to chance. Don't rely on feeling like it. Build a system that makes it easy. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Set a specific time to exercise and treat it like a non-negotiable appointment. Join a gym that's close to your home so there's no excuse. Remove as many barriers as possible so that when the time comes, you don't have to decide, you just do it. If you want to be consistent with deep work, don't sit down at your desk surrounded by distractions. Build a system that makes focus inevitable. Put your phone in another room. Block distracting websites. Set a specific time for deep work and treat it as sacred. Use a timer and commit to focused work sprints. Make it as easy as possible to get into flow. Your environment will always win against your willpower. If you're constantly struggling to stay consistent, it's not because you're weak, it's because your environment is working against you instead of for you. Change your environment and your behavior will change with it. Another crucial part of building a system is tracking your progress. Most people underestimate how powerful tracking can be. When you track your habits, you create a sense of accountability. You make progress visible. And when progress is visible, it's easier to stay consistent. Imagine if every time you completed a workout, you marked it on a calendar. At first, it doesn't seem like much. But after a week, you start seeing a chain of completed workouts. After a month, the chain gets longer. Eventually, you don't want to break the chain, so you keep going. The simple act of tracking your progress becomes a system that keeps you consistent. Another way to build consistency into your system is by creating specific triggers for your habits. A trigger is something that automatically reminds you to take action. It could be a time of day, an existing habit, or an external cue that signals it's time to do the work. For example, if you want to be consistent with reading, attach it to something you already do. Make it a rule that every time you drink your morning coffee, you read for 10 minutes. If you want to be consistent with writing, set a time each morning where writing is the first thing you do. The key is to link your habits to something stable so they become automatic over time. The people who struggle the most with consistency are the ones who try to fit it in whenever they can. They say things like, I'll work out if I have time, or I'll write when I feel inspired. But the people who succeed don't fit it in, they make it a part of their routine. They schedule it. They build their day around it. They create systems that make it impossible to ignore. Think about how airports work. Flights don't just take off whenever they feel like it. There's a strict schedule, a system that ensures everything runs smoothly. Imagine if pilots just decided, I'll take off when I feel like it. The entire system would collapse. But because there's a structured process, flights stay on track. That's exactly how you should treat the things you want to be consistent with. Don't leave them up to chance, build them into your system. And perhaps the most important part of a system is removing unnecessary decisions. Every day we are bombarded with decisions: what to wear, what to eat, what to work on. But the more decisions you have to make, the more likely you are to experience decision fatigue. And decision fatigue leads to inconsistency. That's why some of the most successful people in the world simplify their lives. Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every day. Many top performers eat the same breakfast every morning. They eliminate unnecessary decisions so they can focus their energy on what truly matters. If you want to be more consistent, look at your daily life and identify where you can reduce decisions. Simplify. Automate. Make consistency the easy choice. At the end of the day, consistency isn't about forcing yourself to be disciplined. It's about designing a system where success is inevitable. It's about removing friction, eliminating decisions, tracking progress, and structuring your environment in a way that makes action automatic. The people who succeed aren't the ones with the most willpower. They are the ones with the best systems. So instead of trying to rely on discipline alone, start building a system that works for you. Because when you have the right system in place, consistency is no longer something you have to fight for. It's just who you are.